Sa dagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ang pagkaw ay hinatang tula at awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na naghihindig. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang ay di magtitindig. Luman ang araw ng buwan ating pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang higaya ng pagkay mga akin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we praise you for everyone present in this conference. Shower us with your guidance and wisdom as we go through the event. May you bless the speakers as they impart knowledge and insights to our topics. May all that we learn from this event be beneficial to us and our nation as we aspire to improve our respective career paths. We ask all of these in your name. Amen.
You may all be seated.
Before we start, we would like to acknowledge the presence of FEU Tech Senior Executive Director, Dr. Benson Tan, and FEU Tech Executive Director, Ms. Rosana Adao. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second Philippine Conference on Data Analytics. I am EJ.
And I am Angel, and we are the Masters of Ceremony for today.
Before we start, we ask everyone to settle down and find a comfortable seat for yourselves. Just your few reminders. First, observe cleanliness and ensure that you dispose of your trash properly. Sparta will be providing lunch and snacks for everyone. Next, make sure to confirm your attendance and complete the whole day event to receive an e-certificate from us. Know you're curious about it, you can access the free Wi-Fi. Please refer to the signs around the venue for the Wi-Fi username and passcode.
Fourth, for concerns and questions, please approach the organizers who are wearing black or dark colored clothes. Fifth, attendees can access the program and guidelines by scanning the QR code located on the back of your IDs. Lastly, kindly maintain respectful conduct and don't enjoy the event and participate in the Q&As. Now, to officially begin our event and welcome our guests and attendees, may we call on the Executive Director of the FEU Institute of Technology, Ms. Rosana T. Adao, for her opening message.
Okay, so to our distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, and to all the participants, our warm and heartfelt welcome to all of you to our institution, FEU Institute of Technology, where the second Philippine Conference on Data Analytics convened under the theme Data Analytics for Good Governance, Driving Solutions for a Better Future. As we gather here today, we recognize the immense potential that data analytics holds in shaping the destiny of our beloved country. In a nation as diverse and dynamic as the Philippines, this theme of good governance takes on a profound significance as it encapsulates the big potential of data analytics to catalyze transformational change. Effective governance is not just an aspiration, but a cornerstone of our progress. As we embark on this journey of exploring data driven solutions, we recognize the pivotal role data plays in shaping policies, improving public services, and ultimately in transforming lives. Our commitment to good governance, transparency, and inclusivity guides us as we seek innovative approaches to the challenges that confront us. It is through informed, data driven decision making that we unlock the doors to a brighter future for every Filipino. Within the academic sector, we recognize that knowledge is the cornerstone of progress. It is through research, innovation, and education that we unearth the insights and expertise needed to drive positive change in governance and society at large. Academe can help bridge the knowledge gap by offering data analytics courses and pathways in the curriculum, as well as spearhead discussions on data ethics and governance frameworks. In addition, academic institutions can initiate partnerships and initiatives that can lead to the creation of data repositories, knowledge sharing platforms, and interdisciplinary research that addresses governance challenges. As we embark on this journey, it's crucial to recognize that data analytics is not a mere tool, it's a catalyst for change. It transforms information into actionable insights, guiding us toward a future where the principles of good governance are not just ideals, but lived realities. By embracing data driven analysis, and the values of good governance, we can fulfill our collective duty to the Philippines and its people. This conference is a timely endeavor for us to engage, collaborate, and envision how data analytics can be a catalyst for good governance. Together, we can make a lasting impact and build a better future for generations to come. So, thank you very much and have a good day ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Adol, for your message.
To those participants who are standing at the back and at the hallway, we encourage you to please occupy the seats in front. There are still spaces here. Thank you.
Now, for the keynote, we have the privilege of hearing from the Development Academy of the Philippines, or DAP President and CEO, Attorney Engelbert Caronan Jr. Please give a warm welcome to Attorney Caronan Jr.
To the executive member of the National Innovation Council, Mr. Monchino Ibrahim, Senior Executive Director of the FEU Institute of Technology, Dr. Benson Tan, Executive Director of the FEU Institute of Technology, Ms. Rosana Adaw, Executive Director of the Analytics and Artificial Intelligence Association of the Philippines, Mr. Sherwin Pelayo, Information Systems and Computer Science Department Chair of the Ateneo de Manila University, Dr. Patricia Angela Abu. Also from Ateneo, Operations and Information Technology Department Professor Dr. Angelo Arguson. FEU faculty, staff, and students, Sparta partner organizations, scholars, and all of our conference attendees, a pleasant morning to all of you. Google chief economist Hal Varian once said that the ability to take data, to be able to understand it, to process it, to extract value from it, to visualize it, and to communicate it is going to be a hugely important skill in the next decades. This is especially crucial right now as the world navigates through the fourth industrial revolution. More than ever, it is important to mainstream not only the awareness of data or the importance of data in itself, it is also important to mainstream the use of data and data analytics anchored skills and competencies. We need to know how to interpret information and evaluate them, to be able to communicate the results of data to be useful to its intended audience. We need to know how to make sense of data, which will require critical thinking and, most importantly, the need to know the right analytical skills and competencies. There is a study published in the International Journal of Intelligent Networks, and it says that data analytics is a critical tool that can assist individuals overcome information overload. to help organizations enhance their performance and aid civilizations in solving their societal problems. Already there are many use cases and studies that confirms or supports this claim. A study conducted by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD, found that if data is provided to the end user, productivity increases by around 30%. If the same data is given to possible secondary users, it is also capable of increasing the productivity to another 20%. The increase in productivity is echoed by the researches made by the IT University of Copenhagen and the University of Liechtenstein. These institutions found a positive effect on large international companies that began using data analytics to optimize their business with an average productivity rise of nearly 4% in all industries and almost 7% for IT and data intensive firms. Closer to home, here in the Philippines, it has been shown that data analytics help improve the operations of a power distributor, Meralco, which partnered with a data company to develop an analytics platform that processes its data and runs various machine learning models. Through this platform, the power distributor, or Meralco, improved the turnaround time for the provision of electricity services and implemented predictive analytics that help line offices prevent probable possible power outages to nearly 200,000 customers in 2021 alone. Anchoring on its mandate to support or push for the digital transformation in the Philippines, the DAP, in partnership with the Department of Science and Technology, the AAP, and the Course Bank, we established Project Sparta in 2019 to fill the demand for data analytics professionals and foster smart governance practices by upskilling and reskilling Filipinos through online courses. Now, on its fourth year of implementation, Project Sparta has pioneered the education of thousands of Filipinos through online courses via our main and micro specialization pathways, as well as live trainings on data analytics competencies as recommended by the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. Through its education component, the Sparta seeks to build individual growth through capstone courses where scholars can create innovative solutions that provide a positive income, impact and resolve issues, whether in their workplaces, in their communities, in their localities, or those that affect the country as a whole. Through this second Philippine Conference on Data Analytics, we give our innovators the platform to share their ideas and solutions to some emerging problems. Through this conference, distinguished panel of speakers will discuss the importance of utilizing data analytics in decision making from the academe, the public sector, and the private sector perspectives. This afternoon, you will also witness a wide array of data-driven projects from our presenters that propose solutions to challenges in different sectors and topics such as education, social and economic development, and human and professional development. With this, we call on all of our participants to actively listen, open your minds to new perspectives and ideas, and feel free to ask questions. We highly encourage everyone to take this chance to widen your knowledge and network by connecting and engaging ideas with the various data analytics professionals present today. Let us all work together to foster a data-driven community where your research, your innovations, and solutions can be heard And realize not only for your institution's benefit, but above all for the betterment of our fellow Filipinos and the entire nation. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay tayong lahat.
Before you sit down, Attorney Caronan Jr., may we invite you to the center stage of the plenary for the awarding of the certificate. The certificate will be awarded by Dr. Alan Escajes, Project Lead of Sparta.
We would also like to invite Dr. Benson Tan and Miss Rosana T. Agaw for a photo opportunity with Attorney Caronan and Dr. Cajes.
Thank you very much, sirs and ma'am. We hope everyone is enjoying the event. While we can't ask you to send us an emoji in the comment section, since we are all gathered here face to face, could you please give us a thumbs up or a heart sign if you are excited to hear from our facilitators today? So without further ado, we now open the panel discussion for this conference, which will be moderated by the Sparta Project Manager, Ms. Donna Pamela Gonzalez.
Hello, good morning. Musta po kayong lahat? Thumbs up? Are you, para po tayo nasa Zoom, no? Thumbs up. I'm really happy to see the faces behind the videos, the cameras in the Zoom, and I'm also very happy to have you all here in our first ever face to face at our second data analytics conference. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce. Sorry po, kailangan po daw magsalamin. Our first panel discussant, she is the chair. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He is a professor of the computer science at the Ateneo de Manila University, where he held the post of vice president for several years, overseeing the university's higher education units. He specializes in algorithms, commutability, and artificial intelligence. While his main involvements are with the academe, he's also active in this industry. Most recently, he co-founded Cobinia, a data science and analytics startup, where he served as a chief analytics and technology officer until it was acquired in 2020. Let us all welcome, put your hands together for Dr. John Paul Vergara.
How does it work? Like, morning. Uh, do I just, my slides are there na. Okay. Morning. Ay, hindi ko alam ako pala yung mauna. I mean, host. So, yeah, as indicated, so my name is John Paul Vergara. I've several capacities. So currently, I'm professor of computer science in Ateneo. I teach the AI course. But in addition, I've dabbled a lot in AI and data analytics. Uh, during the pandemic, even before that, I co-founded a startup called Cobina. That's a data analytics firm, and we did a lot there. But my perspective would be from the academe, but at the same time, I'll tell you the kind of stuff that we did there. So, next slide, please. So here are my main points for today. Will be short. I was given just 10 minutes. I'll begin by saying we have lots of data in the country. That's the thing that I've realized. And they're actually useful data and data that we could use for research. I figured you guys are either budding or practicing data scientists, and the biggest challenge has always been, may data ba sa bansa? At if ever meron ba, is it usable? My answer there is yes, and we're learning a lot already, and you'll find out that it's something we can work with. Um, and even if there's no data, I'll find out, as I'll indicate, you could actually generate it. Okay, you could and make sense of it, and gather insights from that as well. And I'll talk a little bit about ethical considerations. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'll come up with a few sample research and researches and use cases. Uh, um, my colleague and chair of my department will also give you a few more examples of that. But I'll talk about, in particular, geospatial analytics. Second, this thing that came off of our understanding of that, I'll talk about some research on what we call business oasis. This is local insights on parang data business centers in the Philippines. And then I'll get a little more techy. I'll talk about reinforcement learning, and also this very parang strange corner that I've been into that's also in data science called cultural evolution. Next slide. Okay, so as I started, I said there's a lot of data in the country. We have lots of public data, government data. I just listed a few here. When we co-founded, when we started at Cobina, we said, is there something we can use? And is there something out there? So when the small group of uh, um, professionals then fresh graduates, we said, can you just like see what's there? And there's lots of data out there. For example, I'm sure if you've even tried it, Philippine Statistics Authority, you get they're very structured there already. The data on population, demographics, and such. They're there and very organized. But beyond that, there's a lot of other institutions or agencies and such that would have data in from various perspectives. So I'll just name a few things like DPWH, who have road data. I have a couple of students now whose thesis are just about figuring out what you can do with the road data, road quality, kind of like road maturity, and so on. Go down to something like DepEd. There's lots of data on infrastructure, number of students, and so on. BIR, that's quite interesting. The most interesting piece of data we've found out there would be um, there's this thing called zonal valuation. If you've ever needed to sell property, you need to get to that site and check how much data is in a particular region, for example, in the country or even a street, right? And you get you'd be able to find out how much like the average value of commercial or residential places in the country, because we need that whenever we sell property, right? So I just mentioned a few things, but if you put them all together, you can come up with something quite interesting, and that's what we got. We had some success in when we were consulting for firms who needed help. In around 2016 to 2018, bagong-bago pa lang yung data science and analytics. So we said, can we actually do it? Kunyari, our clients there and then was kunyari, like fast food chains or like gas stations. They want to find out where's the best place to set up a next branch, right? And how do we do something like that? Next slide, please. Right. So we collected all of that data that's out there. We ended up with like 1,000 data layers in the country, all the way down to the barangay level, right? So we can do things like and parang figure out economic growth kind of indicators. We came up with this thing called road maturity index for a given barangay or for a given city. How much road is there? And like road would mean That's like a measure of urbanization, right? And maybe there's like things that are like no-brainers. Yeah, sa Manila, Metro Manila, no problem, right? Pero how do you find out which areas are a little more urbanized than others? You can determine that from road maturity. I mentioned zonal valuations, BIR, and then there's a whole bunch of so many other things. Wealth indicators, vulnerability. We have data like typhoon paths, from 50 years ago up to the present. You can find out how many times a barangay or a city has been hit by a typhoon, and that might be important data for us, or maybe just figuring out trends. I'm told by some climate people na yung mga bagyo ngayon is going a little lower than by lower, more south, and we can actually find that out just from analyzing that kind of data. Next slide. Just to show you how like we built a platform. Okay, we called it gateway there. And what we could do then is like parang snapshot particular areas and say, "Ay, this is the best place kasi that's where things that you're interested in would be." Right. So for instance, if you find out you want to build a you want to set up you want to get into like the yeah, you want to build a chain of drugstores. Okay, so what that means might be I want to be beside hospitals, or I want to be beside schools, right? I want to make sure there's like enough activity there. So I want to be beside what fast food chains, McDonald's, Jollibee's, etc. And you can do that. And technically, so this geospatial analytics, figure out the layers, points of interest, and such, and then say, okay, this is the best place to be in. Right? You can look at current branches and say, your most successful branches are such that they have these characteristics, and that's what geospatial analytics is all about. Okay, next slide, please. And then we actually turned this into academic papers, right? There were things that we found out in the entire country. We're able to do this thing called parang their business oasis. Yung parang if you ever gone to like outside of Metro Manila and you're traveling, di ba parang may mga bayan? Di ba parang there are places that suddenly biglang mabibuild up yung traffic, right? And then you'll say, oh, it's a little busier there, and so on. So we can automatically figure that out by just looking at all these different data points, right? So we had a paper that says determining uh, business oasis, which means they're like a small area or polygon that bounds different places, uh, such that we can say, kunyari, if this was in Metro Manila, it's, that's Makati, that's Ortigas, that's Katipunan, that's the University Belt. Pero that's obvious, di ba? Pero if you go to other places, you could run algorithms to find out parang the most concentrated areas where there's like uh, there's great business activity and so on. So now we ended up writing a paper on that. Next slide. So my point is there's a wealth of data out there, and in fact, you could turn them into very useful um, uh, 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 gather business insights, and actually, it's a very good opportunity for research. That data is generally openly available, but not so great news, it's not so coordinated. There was a lot of like sweat that we had to go through just to put them all together. Because one agency will write it out this way, another agency will write it out some other way, and they don't come together. They don't write their cities together like Sultan Kudarat is like S Kudarat or Sultan K or spelled fully, etc. And that's what we needed to get them all together because our use case is to figure out exactly where things are and whether we can put them at the level of province, city, or barangay. Next slide, please. Okay, my second point. If you have no data, what do you do? Right? And if you want to work on something else, not geospatial analytics, not necessarily data in the country, what would you do? Well, AI or data analytics research is still possible. And uh, usually you just run simulations to actually come up with very interesting theoretical and research kind of insights, which lead to a lot of significant opportunities. Let me give you one example. Next slide. This one's a student of mine. We graduated a couple of years ago from our data science program in Ateneo. He was the first graduate. He worked on something called reinforcement learning and tried to model the concept of how to capture experience. How does experience, how can we model experience as we try to solve problems, right? So usually machine learning would be about figuring out data out there and patterns from it. But sometimes this little field called reinforcement learning is all about interacting with an environment and learning from it. And what he tried to do is how do we capture and model experience? And he did that. Pero in what context? Well, yeah, because it was a very new theoretical kind of topic, we had to play with little toy problems. So parang you had like this little thing called where parang you're balancing a cart pole or you're landing a spaceship, but it's all very theoretical. And we generated possible scenarios and data for it. And there's physics kind of simulation models from which you could actually test your theories. And it ended up being quite insightful, and that worked out quite well. Um, uh, and like I said, this generated data. It's not, but all he needed were simulation models and such. One other example I had a slide here, but I had to cut it a little bit. But for example, uh, you probably heard of like the developments in the last few years on how well AI has been with like playing chess. For example, like Alpha Zero in the last couple of years. Well, in the late 90s pa lang, it beat, diba? Parang technology got to the point where it beat the grandmasters. Right, and it was all about learning from lots of games and lots of parang lots of chess games para mag-beat niya yung grandmaster. But a couple years ago, there's this paper where it learned chess just from the rules of the game. And all it did was just like play chess many times. And then from there, it got to a point after just a few hours of training, it beat the grandmaster. Okay, so no parang ground data, just rules of the game. It worked out. Okay, I'm working on something similar, pero in a more local game. How many here have played Pusoy? Okay, it's not the DOS Pusoy. It's a 13 card game. Yung Pusoy, yung like there's 3, 5, 5. If you know what how that game works, it's a little interesting kasi the decision that we make there is we parang split the cards in a particular configuration para make good, better, best, right? And that's a very popular game, at least when I was young, right? But it's not that straightforward in terms of figuring out how strong a hand is. Okay, so what I did, I'm like, like we came up with a way to parang make a computer play against itself, reinforcement learning type for like it tries to figure out the strength of a hand just by playing 1,000 times and then play it again another generation and such, and we ended up with something similar, right? So it's simpler than chess, pero it's quite interesting then, and it's that's called reinforcement learning, like trying to um, go through or decide on particular actions based on particular rewards and punishments is how it works. Next slide. So the point I'm trying to make is, regardless of where you are, there's so many uh, areas in AI that are unexplored, and you could, if you wanted just a corner that's very theoretical, it would work too. There's theoretical models, and you can test them through toy problems and even generate data as a result. Next slide. Oh, this one's like an example. Like I'm working with someone. I have a collaborator in Switzerland now. It's a very interesting corner that also involves both generated data as well as practical data. I'll try to explain it a bit, pero it turns out you could actually simulate the population of the Earth from like 100,000 years ago and estimate them, right? Using DNA and climate kind of phenomenon or theoretical model. So parang alam ko parang 75,000 years ago, ganito yung population ng area sa mundo, right? And so that was a model generated off of climate or genetic kind of theory. And you have that. Okay, now what do you do with that data? Right? The theory here is like, so the guy I'm collaborating with here wanted to say, how is learning, how does culture evolve, and can we correlate it with that kind of population data? So what we did here was, so parang mga archaeologists yung collaborate ko rito. So they said, okay, at some point, people started writing or carving on rocks. So that means they were a little more intelligent. But at some point, siguro they build spears. That means they're a little more intelligent. So we can correlate that with how population evolved. And that's the kind of result that came off of the study, right? And parang at the end, you'll do the things that you probably studied in Smart, like you'll do clustering, you'll do kind of parang how do you put together particular data points, etc. And then at the end, we end up finding a correlation between um, culture and population. So at the end, you need to have enough population to learn particular things, to pass on knowledge, and as a result, evolve culture, which kind of makes sense. Common sense din naman yun eh. Parang, my collaborator gave a few examples of merong mga bagay na natutunan tayo before, and at the end, because populations dwindled, we forgot about it, right? And there were so many examples where importanting we need actual people to actually pass on knowledge as we move on from one generation to the next. Next slide. So the point I'm trying to make is you could even do hybrid things where you have generated data and actual data. We had this rock art versus population generated from simulation models, and and as a result, you got nice data science practice going on. And partly why I gave this example is like if you notice from the variety of examples I just gave today, they're all over the place. In fact, data science, analytics, AI of course, like virtually applies to almost any discipline. Okay, so parang the most recent thing that happened in the last year in language, right? So these large language models can, which amazed everyone, right? So parang you can imagine how it impacts on the field of linguistics and communication and general knowledge, or our knowledge in general. Next slide. Okay, so as I conclude, I just want to give a little bit of caution with, and in particular give the aspect of ethical consideration. So first, fair use of data. So always be conscious if you want to practice data science, be conscious of things like intellectual property. Okay, be conscious of actual fair use, whether you're benefiting from something. So when we gathered all that data from different places, we were very careful to make sure to ask permission, right? And say, can we use it for this purpose? And for the most part, they'd say yes. When they say we're not sure or we don't know, we'll be cautious and not use them for for cases where, for example, we'll make money from it, right? So be conscious of that. At an academic setting, of course, for the most part, if you're doing for research, in general, that would be okay. You might step into things, aspects of data privacy, and that one I'm hoping you did get to cover, which means there's ethics that come with analyzing data that involve humans, involve information about humans and citizens and such, and we get to worry about that too. When you're conducting data analytics, it's very tempting and it's very common for you to have this thing called confirmation bias. We start with a conclusion and then we make sure we make the data, we massage the data enough to end up agreeing with our conclusion. Be careful about that because that happens more often than you would think. Finally, research transparency. Make sure that when you do come up with something, it's something that you could defend as well as be open about with respect to the methods and the data you use as you make your conclusions. Next slide. So just to summarize, I think my 10 minutes are probably up or I've exceeded it. We have lots of data in the country. It's actually very useful data and it's research worthy data. And even if you don't have data, you can generate them. So there's so many ways to be able to play around with this field. Um, and it's a very exciting field to be in for sure. Finally, as we carry out these very exciting things, to do take note of ethical considerations. Thank you.
May I invite you, sir, to in our panel over here. It was such an interesting presentation. First time to hear about the words business oasis. Me already being in data analytics with Sparta, I think we've learned a lot of new words, especially in his presentation. Um, it's up. I'm actually quite amazed about the number of researches done. Kaya po ba patintero in AI? Di po ba? May chess, may pusoy, yes, present, mga naglalaro nung unang panahon. Okay. So thank you very much, Dr. JP Vergara. Now, For our second discussant, she is the chair of the Department of Information Systems and Computer Science of the Ateneo de Manila University. She leads the research group of the Ateneo Laboratory for Intelligent Visual Environment. She is also a research member of the Internet of Things, IoT, and Intelligent Cloud Center of the Chungwan Christian University in Taoyuan City, Taiwan, where she earned her Master's of Science in Electronics Engineering, major in microelectronics. She has also been involved in numerous pro- research projects. She was project leader of the Citizen Compliance Monitoring and COVID-19 Safety Protocol on the use of face mask and co-lead of the Computer Vision and Image Analysis Team. Philippine, California Advanced Research Institute, PICARI, cloud-based intelligent total analysis system, CITAS, using geospatial wireless sensors and mobile microscopy project. A lot of big words. Okay, so I'd like to ask everyone to help me welcome with a round of applause Dr. Patricia Angela, our
Good afternoon, everyone. Um, what I will be presenting right now, since I will be wearing different hats in the department, is to present what the department is actually currently doing, and also give more highlights on the research lab, which is my my own research, so I can explain it more clearly to you guys, and hopefully encourage you, to find and continue is in order for us to have contribute to solutions that will actually help our society. So empowering lives through data, unveiling the possibilities. So I will show you different applications and projects that we've done in the department, given the data that is available. So this will have some overlaps with what Dr. John Paul has already presented. So just to show you the scope, or how big is the group is in Ateneo, specifically in the Department of Information Systems and Computer Science, we have five undergraduate students. Undergraduate programs. We all of which, a majority of which are doing data analytics. Thus, we also open specializations, which include data science and analytics, which is can be taken as a minor for non CS students. So we give them also this um, uh, the chance, to also learn data analytics because of its interdisciplinary approach. So majority of which in our minor program actually take the DSA, almost more than 90% of them, and also our graduate programs. So in terms of numbers, sorry, where should this be? Okay. In terms of numbers, we have 1,000 of undergraduate students. In terms of those who are taking minors, we're nearing 150. Okay, so we're talking about the current numbers in the current semester. And in graduate studies, that's masters and PhD, then we have 100 students. So we have this number of students that we can actually empower to find solutions, and help society to be better. So with all of those students, of course, that will require thesis work, research work. They're housed in um, eight laboratories within the department and one research center. So those that are highlighted in yellow are actually those laboratories that makes use of um, data science and analytics. So let me highlight. So sorry, where should I point this? Somewhere there. Okay, there. Okay. So we have different applications for data science and analytics. So we have an application for sound and music. So you can do AI, and then you're gonna play a song, and it's like a duo with the AI. We have computer algorithms and applications. That's most of what Dr. Vergara have presented a while ago. And we have a laboratory for intelligent visual environment which is the laboratory I head. Majority of the data here used are images and videos. We have learning sciences, which is using data analytics to improve and help the education sector and improve student learning. And we have social computing science lab, where, as already mentioned a while ago, we have LLM. And lastly, we have the center for the department where um, many of the labs are actually housed. So So our question now will be, how can we utilize data and data analytics? So it was already presented a while ago that we have many data available. So many of you, majority of you, I might be presenting your own data later on in the afternoon. So I'll take that as a given that we know that there are many. Also, we'll just see later on what the challenges are. So now, how can we utilize this data in creating solutions and decision making? So we hope to go out of the laboratory. Now we know we have many publicly available data sets that you can use. So you're coding inside your laboratories, your research labs, your classrooms. How we can now utilize that one and use it outside and make it useful for other people. So I will highlight three of the laboratories because somehow there's a story, or if they're interconnected in terms of the applications that they're currently working on. So that's the computer vision, the learning sciences and the education, and social computing. And I'll finalize that with the highlight of the output for the center. For For the ALS, the learning sciences, so here, what they've done will be a novice programming, so that we can relate. So everyone's here coding, right? So there's one of the studies actually to learn how expert programmers try to debug a code. Where do they look, from top to bottom, or do you go from middle, go back up? There, so there's a sequence. Also, that's their data. So they also try to examine what a novice programmer how does a novice programmer do the debugging. So they use this data in order to teach, and see how to improve a novice programmer to be like how the expert programmers would actually do. So for the three laboratories, I'll make use of the pandemic situation to show you how they try to make use of data science and analytics to provide solutions. So I think many of us will be able to relate to that one because we've been through it. So instead of us just choosing one that is very specific application that might be restricted only to some specialized area, so we'll use that one. So because of the pandemic, we tried to use online learning. So in Ateneo, we have Canvas, the learning management platform. So, so one of their study was to use data analytics in order to study if it's actually effective. So how is it effective? So now we know that there are many data available, but if you already have the specific kind of problem and solution that you will have to show, and results to get, it feels sometimes that you have scarcity of data because you cannot easily get it from one available source. So you will have to generate or make surveys in order to have those data and generate results which they can use for decision making. The next laboratory is the computer vision laboratory. So before pandemic, this laboratory has already been working on transportations and health applications. There's supposed to be a video here showing the transport and the road damage detection. Oh, here. So it might be loading. Here, health, there's also MRI images, which luckily the lab was able to have like a medical doctor who would want to take DSA. So we try to work with the data, but as mentioned a while ago, also there are ethical concerns. So it's kind of like restricting how we can do more with the data. So this laboratory, is there a button that plays the video? It should autoplay. So uh, please try to click if there's a play button. So both should play simultaneously. So the one on the right side is a phase two of the project. Talking about the pandemic, so there's actually a need to monitor citizen compliance on the wearing of the face mask. Right? So this is the second phase. So if you'll see, there's a compliance rating here, but it's not perfect, but we're trying to set it up and show some compliance rating. So the goal here is actually to show if a certain area, a populated area, crowded site, is actually using wear mask. Like, are they using only 70% of them are using, or is it 95%? Because this will help out in decision making later on if a particular site or particular barangay is only using face masks like 30% of the time, then most likely the spread of COVID in this area will be high. So that will also give a better set of data for decision makers to say if they're going to lock down the area. Okay. So that's the phase two, the one on the right side with the compliance rating. So the phase one of that was actually just to use data that are frontal, right? So there are many face mask data available. Okay, so we started with that as a phase one, just front view. Okay, now we want to make the study more robust or the models more robust. So the second phase would now consider left side. So the video should be playing during front and left. So that's a phase two. So after the frontal and the left side, the third one would actually now consider detecting if a person is using a face mask that is accredited face mask or N95 face mask, or just using a cloth or with occlusion. So this video should be showing different face mask here and also covering her mouth to show if that's detected. So if you're just covering your mouth with your hands, that shouldn't be a mask detection. Next slide, please. So to show here, the third phase now includes occlusion. So if you see there is without face mask. Is without face mask. Here is also without face mask, even if it's covered. And here is with face mask. So another extension to this, next slide please. Another extension to this is also to detect properly worn face mask. Okay. So here is an incorrectly worn face mask. Okay. Here is with mask incorrectly worn as well, and also this one is incorrectly worn. So this is partial. No, so you will see how robust the model is already for this one. Next slide, please. So it was also tested on multiple phases because during the first phases, just phase of the study, there's only one phase on the screen. So now we've tested how robust the model is in multiple phases and different depths. So if you'll notice here, yeah, this is not detected. Here is not also detected. So it also depends on the lighting. This one's brighter. This one's here is more bright. Then it's not detected anymore. No, so you will see the model now would need more accurate uh, detection. So it also depends on the data that was used. Next slide, please. So just to show you summary, so this is how long it takes. No? Sometimes you want to already have something that is so accurate that you think you can do it in 1 year. And then later on, when you start doing it, it actually just you're doing a very small portion of what you have planned to envision also to have at the end. So it actually took 3 years for that one. It's not even perfect yet. There's still more room to do for this one. So like I mentioned, in the first phase, it's just frontal view, and the detection is just worn or not worn. So we'll show here how you can actually extend the studies. Here, a side view has been added, and then Here, the last one, there's improperly worn and as well as occlusion. So let me show you also, in the first phase, there's publicly available data. So what was used there is 25,000 of images, you know, available because it's publicly available. Now that you want to be more specific in terms of what you want to have in a solution to a particular problem, the second phase become more restricted in terms of what we can use because we also need to have side view data. Okay. So in this phase, it only started like 300 data because we need to like select it. So it was also mentioned in the previous by Dr. John Paul Vergara a while ago that there are ethical concerns. We can actually just ask students to, can you please take a photo of your face mask, side view, and all, but we have ethics concerns, so it also limits it. And here in the third one, from 300, we're able to now increase the data to like 800. So that long, how long it takes. And these are just, they're not full time doing this one. So this is thesis work. So that's another thing to consider. Next slide, please. So here are the sample of the photos. So that's part. There's this one is publicly available. So now you need to like select a particular category of images for the second phase to add to that so that you can make the system more robust to side view and add more in the end. Okay, so that part of collecting the data, okay, it's not readily available. So it can be there, but you need to select it or generate some of it or also try to use AI. So next slide, please. So also not only the data, but in the phases. The first one is just simulation and to show that it works on an RPI, that it can run on smaller platform. So the second one we already have like to show a simulation a real time, but still a simulation web camera. So but here the improvement is there's already a compliance rating that's being shown now in relation to the COVID. And then the third phase, that's the only time we were able to really do it on real time. So you see here our lab GAs are playing on it already. In the third year, that's the only time that the other people are already enjoying the output of it because it's working real time. So it takes that long to make it like interesting for other people. So next slide, please. So this is just a zoom of it. So just using this one, we have this very small screen. We can no longer like increase the size. And also there are already, because here in real, a while ago, it's data set that you're testing. So you're expecting a high accuracy. But when you already have it on real time, lighting effects already will take into account. So it doesn't work as intended. No, so there are a lot more things to improve. So next slide, please. So the next question here now is how can our study be helpful for society? So as I mentioned a while ago, if you already want to have a solution to a particular problem, it seems like you have a very small data. We have 300s only in that previous example. So we have to come up with a localized data and a very specific set of data for that particular problem that you want to solve. And as mentioned a while ago, we can generate that. We can also do acquisition in order to target our solution. And this would also involve ethical concerns. So next slide, please. The third lab will be the social computing lab. So here, they study social, cultural, behavioral interactions. So we also work together with the other labs and other departments, also with mathematics departments, also with the electronics. So if you see the RPI already there, so it's an interdisciplinary study. So if we are to relate this with the previous face mask detection, then behavioral interactions. Another extension to that is actually how do you intend to sorry if your seatmate is wearing face mask, are you most likely to wear your face mask also? Or if your seatmate remove his face mask, are you also going to remove yours? So it's behavioral analytics already, which can also be incorporated to the study. So those previous studies on the face masks has actually been um, sprouted out of a bigger project that was in need in during the pandemic. So next slide, please. So now the last one will be in the center. So this is the one which had a solution in a nationwide scope. So it's the Ateneo Center for Computing Competency and Research. So this one started in 2003 as AJWCC, or Ateneo Java Wireless Computing Competency, but because of the technology change and improvement, that was renamed to Acre. So it's no longer just Java, and they have different platforms like for banana, because there's how do we solve like the banana plantation concerns using images and the others. And the highlight is actually the platform of for the faster. Next slide, please. So the platform with this one is in collaboration with the Department of Health. So the data is there, but still there's a lot of work done to prepare to have a more accurate prediction of the COVID cases. So this is actually one of the platforms that were used to guide the decisions of the government. So this study is the one with the larger scale. So next slide, next slide, please. Yeah. Just to summarize, so how all of those laboratories and projects are actually interrelated. What is actually the need? What is the scope that you would want to do, and also the challenge. So these are the three laboratories and the research center that we have presented a while ago. So there's actually a need during that time to make decisions, and it should be fast, right? Because it should be fast. So how can we use data now in order to decide during the time? So there's a need, Ateneo LMS system, so that's inside Ateneo. The citizen compliance monitoring of face masks was supposed to be deployed on the streets, but there are also some concerns. So you will need to find some collaborations with the barangays and all. So how to set that one up is another challenge. And then lastly will be policy making for the prediction of COVID cases. So that's on a national level. So you can start small from the lab and ask how can you extend it and use your study as a solution. So you go out of your lab and see how you can help in your smaller community, in your barangay, and then eventually in a larger scale. So a challenge for all of this is actually to have a localized data. So one of my other studies actually um, skin detection, skin lesion detection. And yes, there are publicly available data set, but actually it's Western. So the skin color is actually white. So if we're now going to use that and implement it real time here, it might not work that accurately because of the skin. So another study in the lab is actually the traffic sign detection. So the initial simulations for with my student was actually using a publicly available data set in Germany and in China. So when we were already running it real time to test it how it works here in the Philippines, it doesn't work because the curve of the left turn is different from ours. The no entry sign, some fun kind of like difference. So we will have to get the local data set, which is actually a challenge. So to finalize that, how can our study be helpful for actually development? No, we want to actually already do more. No? So we're coding inside our laboratory. So if we answer our question on how we can be helpful for development, or how can you make use of your research for development, then you would want to do more, and that would mean you will be coding more and you will be having collaborations outside when you go out of the laboratory, and hopefully you will be able to serve more for the society. So I hope this one gives you a guide on how you can actually find or contribute or encourage you to find solutions to improve whatever problems that you interests you here in our society. So thank you. That's the end of the presentation.
May I invite you, Dr. Abu, to our stage, center stage. Okay. Are you still here with me? Yes, thank you very much. Okay. So we've learned about the power of data from the academic sector from Dr. John Paul Vergara and Dr. Abu. Now we will turn to the private sector, the power of data in the private sector. And it is my honor, actually, to present the long running SME of Project Sparta. Especially if you're Sparta scholars here, you really know who he is for the SP 101 course. And he's also the executive director of the Analytics and AI Association of the Philippines. He's also responsible for giving strategic direction in implementing the AAP's vision of a healthy and vibrant analytics and AI, and artificial intelligence sector. This includes establishing trusted relationships with the government, academic institutions, learning organizations, and the private sector to drive progress. It is my pleasure to welcome, let's all welcome, Mr. Sherwin Belay.
This is real. This is not AI. We're not in Zoom anymore. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Actually, I kind of inserted myself here in this conference because I really, really wanted to see you all. Like, for example, Attorney Caronan and Dr. Kahes. I think the last time that we were in the same place live was actually during the launch of Project Sparta in 2021. 2019, right? So it was very, very long time ago. And of course, we're also very thankful in AAP, especially thankful for the Development Academy of the Philippines for taking us through beyond our 3 years. And now we're in the fourth year. Data science, analytics is not going to stop. Project Sparta is going to definitely go on. We need to insert some more modules because of generative AI, so there's definitely a lot more of to come. With Project Sparta, courtesy of the Development Academy of the Philippines. I'm also thankful that we are here at FEU Institute of Technology. Thank you very much, especially to Executive Director Adaw. FEU Institute of Technology has been a member of the AAP since 2022, and later I'll tell you something that we have done with FE. Okay, so everyone kind of knows where are the Project Sparta scholars here. Come on, come on. We don't have Mentimeter, so we're going to do this live. And this is stock knowledge anymore. Where are the scholars? Hindi ko babawiin yung certificate niyo SP101. Data value chain. Data value chain. The first stage. Oh, sir. First stage. Isang word lang. First stage.
Data ba?
Sinabi mo na.
Naglo-loading ako. Sorry.
Sinabi mo na.
Data.
All right, very good. Data. That's the very first stage where we actually create, data. Okay, who's next? Second, scholar, ma'am. Who's the Sparta scholar? Sparta. Ayaw na magtaas ng kamay. Stock knowledge. Second stage. Go on. That's the first transformation that analytics does to data. Come on, go on. Sino ba? Game. Ang mga Sparta scholars natin. Anyone? Sparta scholar? Sige, pagkita hindi mo na sagot. Yeah, go ahead. All right, okay. Guys, technology to dapat. Information. Okay? That's the first transformation that analytics does. Diba? Remember, you have all of these various data sources. You want to consolidate them into a single repository so that you'll be able to answer the question, what happened? This is where we do descriptive analytics. Diba? We describe the things that happen. All right, next one. What's the second transformation that data goes to? From information to, go ahead, insights. Thank you very much. Okay, insights. This is where we try to find the hidden trends and patterns. You've consolidated everything already into a single repository. Okay, so now we want to have, since we have historical data, this is where we get to find the trends and patterns in the data so that we can answer the two questions. Okay, why did it happen? And what would likely happen next. So this is where we do diagnostic, and predictive analytics. Last one, most important thing, last transformation that data goes through. The third eye. Yep, very good. May konti ko ba dyan? Very good. Okay. It doesn't stop at generating insights. We need to act on the insights. Okay. So the last transformation that analytics does in data to increase the value of the data is through picture yan. Hindi nyo din-download yan sa SB101. Balik kayo sa Linang. Download nyo yan. Alright, okay. So it's in imperatives. We want to answer the question, what should be done next? So this is where we do prescriptive analytics. So remember, stack knowledge, DIII, data, information, insights, imperatives. Okay. So creation of data, descriptive analytics, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive analytics. Okay. Next, there are 5 data rows, 5 corresponding to each stage. And each role actually is very distinct. There might be few overlaps, okay, but these are very, very distinct roles where you can actually create your own career path in analytics. Okay, responsible on the data side, data governance, data ethics, data security. Who is that? The steward, great. All right. Okay, data steward. Responsible for consolidating all of the information into a single database called the data warehouse. Who are they? Data engineers, right? J- the most knowledgeable in math and stat to generate the trends and patterns. All right, great. Okay. Who generates the action? Who understands the data, translates that into something that the business can understand? Great. Functional analyst. And who puts them all together? Who manages the projects? Analytics managers. Excellent. All right. Stock knowledge. These are still the 5. It's not going to change in any form. So you can actually build career paths in any of these 5 roles. Okay. So how have we defined data analytics? It should be again stock knowledge for everyone already. It progresses data along its value chain with the purpose of delivering the right decision support. Hinighlight natin yan sa SB 101. Analytics cannot make decisions for us. It can support us in making decisions, but the final decision is still up to us, the people. Okay. So it's just a decision support system. But it is intended to be given to the right people and digital process at the right time for the greater good. Okay. So you know all of these already. So something that I'd like to add into this, and when we say how data is actually applied to organizations, whether it's the private sector, the public sector, or the academy, I'm offering now a slightly different additional definition. Now, this is business analytics. So, business analytics in general is the practice of enabling change in an organization. And there are sorry, business analysis is the process of enabling change in an organization. Business analytics is the process of enabling change in an organization through data analytics. This is kind of a next level. Okay. And hopefully, when you go and participate in whatever analytics projects in your organization, is you'll follow this. And then there's a different framework on this. I didn't actually put this in SB 101. Okay. But this is something that you will be experiencing once you are part of an organization doing analytics project. So the business analytics model at the in any organization, it's always going to be comprised of competencies, people, and processes. But how do you apply data analytics in a business setting or an organization setting? It's always going to be composed of all of these. Okay. So if you remember in SB 101 in week 3, you kind of have that animated story of Aling Lala. Okay, so from her humble sari store, it became now to a very very big retail store. This is the framework that Aling Lala followed. Okay, so it's not starting, I mean, if you look at the data life cycle, it starts with data, information, insights, and imperatives. The proper way to do that, in any business setting, is you'll have to start it from the leadership of the organization. Meaning the leaders in your organization should really be very keen in using data to drive change in your organization. And then it follows, your business unit heads, your functional analysts, your data scientists, data stewards. Nasa huli actually mga data engineers and IT professionals. So in this framework, you will see that in the orange, you have the business driven environment. Meaning these are the roles that really are very, very much attuned to what the organization is all about. Okay? And which is why we're also saying that analytics should really be part of the business organization and it's not IT, really. If you look at this, the data engineers are really the more technical ones and they're part of the technically oriented environment. But most of the roles that you've seen earlier, they're actually part of the business environment. How does this work? It actually starts from the top when the leadership or the entire organization is demanding for information. So you always start with, what the organization needs. And then everything that you do as a data professional should align to what the organization needs. It is not that the project should start from the data engineers. Your analytics project should not be dictated but what by the data that you have. Okay, it should not be limited with what the data that you have. If you need data to answer a pressing business problem and you don't have that data, your analytics project shouldn't stop. You need to create that data. Okay? So what I'm saying is that your analytics project, in a business setting, should be driven by the goals of the organization and not with the data that you have. So you have to create the data. So when information demand goes down from the leadership, your data scientists, your data engineers, are kind of scramble to find a way to get all of those data, and then it goes back to the top with the supply of information. So I'm going to give you another example similar to what you have in SB 101 in Aling Lala. For a radio station, for example, how do you create this information strategy roadmap? So you start with by understanding what are the overall goals of your organization. Okay. So if you're part of an organization already, you need to know what are the KPIs, the objectives of the entire organization. Most probably it's going to be revenue, profitability, stakeholder benefits, etc. Those are the typical overall goals of an organization. Next, you need to go down to the department. Okay. Are you in HR, marketing, IT, operations, finance? Okay. Those goals you need to those goals of those departments and business units you also need to understand. And you need to see how that is aligned with the overall goal of the organization. Then you now go to the specific business process of that department. If you're in HR, are you in learning and development? Are you in employee engagement? Okay. So each of those business process you need to also look into because they have their own goals. And you'll have to again look at how those goals of that particular business function aligns to the overall organization. Then you go to the analytical process and steps. If you're into employee engagement, you're going to be pretty much concerned probably with attrition or retention of your employees or employee engagement. Now we're going now into that process or function that you might want to get answered by data. If more than 25% of my employees are leaving the company, you might want now to ask why and what is the data that I need in order for me to answer that question. That's when you get data from your data warehouse. That's when you get your data sources from IT operations and development. Okay? That's when you ask them with the data once you have your business question. Remember, design thinking, it's always starting with problem definition, right? But it doesn't stop there. Once you have all of these information, you now try to evaluate the entire business analytics process. So how do you do this in your radio station? Probably do this. You'll have a strategy, the overall goal of the organization. Okay, I want more people to listen to my radio station. I want a market share to increase by say 25 percent. Now that's the overall goal of the organization. I am a DJ. DJ po ba tawag doon? I'm a radio caster and I have this program, okay, in this radio station. So how can I contribute to increasing the market share? It could be that for the program that I have, I'll have to make sure that the average listening time of someone who's going to tune into my radio station is about 30 minutes. Okay. So apparently in the radio business, when someone stays with you for 30 minutes, you'll get market share during that period of time. So then you ask, okay, so how do I know who listens to my radio program? You now ask the question, who listens to what and when? So you now need to get data on who is actually listening, when are they listening to this program, and what are their interests, and that's why they're actually tuning in to the program. So you start collecting the data, you develop a data warehouse with say the demographics of your listeners, and then if you don't have those data, you get your IT and create a web form or a mobile app to say, okay, we need to capture that data. So basically, what we're saying again here is that an organization should not be limited to the data that you have. If you really need it to answer a pressing business problem, then get IT to create a way for you to get the data. So this is kind of different na, di ba, from the data value chain. And this is how you will actually work on an analytics project, okay, once you join a particular organization. It doesn't start with IT, okay? It always has to start with the business. It must be the analytics project or for any project that you might have really in any organization. It must be organizationally driven. Okay. Last slide. Sparta scholars know me all too well. So what is my last slide going to be? That's a last slide. And Doc JP and Doc Patricia mentioned that because this is a very, very important last slide. Oh, parang hindi na tayo nagsusunod ng ilang beses. What's the last slide all about? Sure. Sabi na yan. Anong in-emphasize pa ni na Doc JP and Doc Patricia? Ethics, using data for social good. And I've always emphasized two things. Ba, sabi so kalimutan nyo na lahat. Huwag lang itong dalawang data ethics principle na to. So let me re-emphasize that. First, intention. You need to ask yourself, at the very start, before you even start, working with your project, is you need to ask why you need the data, what you will gain from it, and what changes you'll be able to make after the analysis. There's going to be all other, data ethics principles, transparency, accountability, privacy, security. The first thing that you need to really look into is intention. Why are you collecting this data anyway? Okay. The most ethical practice here is that you need to get the minimum amount of data from your customers, from your stakeholders. Okay. If you don't have any intention of using a piece of data, then don't get it from them. Okay, that's unethical already. If you're into say creating an application on women's healthcare, for example, okay, you might need the health records, for example, some demographic information, but do you want to collect still employment records, transcript of records? They don't mean anything about women's healthcare, right? So just make sure that you get the minimum amount of data, only the minimum amount of data from your users or from your stakeholders. And then the last point again is about outcomes. Okay. Analytics, the outcomes of analytics is always unpredictable. You always start with a hypothesis, something that you'd want to prove with data. and then you use your data to prove whether that hypothesis, okay, or your what you want to prove is really true or not. Okay, your data after your analysis, it might come out with something that is different from what you expect. You want to, for example, you want to find out from which school do your high performing employees come from, because you really want to get the best people in your organization, right? So you gather all of your data, you put that into the rigors of the analytics process, and then you find out that sino katabi niyo school dito? NTC. You suddenly find out that in your analysis, the, and, and you've done all of the rigor in it, it says that all of your top performing employees come from this one particular school. That's the fact that the analytics process did. Okay, that's the outcome of your analytics process. The question now is, what are you going to do? Are you just going to hire from that one school because your data has shown and proven that all of your top performing employees are coming from that school? If you do that, then you're acting unethically already, because you are now discriminating, other applicants from other schools. So that's what we're saying about outcomes. For as long as you acknowledge that the outcome of an analytics process is unpredictable and it's really just telling you what the data is telling, you need to acknowledge that you don't really need to follow what the data is saying. That's why I mentioned kanina, di ba, that analytics is a decision support. If analytics told you that all of your high performing employees are coming from this school, that's the whether or not you're going to follow that, that makes it right or wrong. Analytics per se, and any technology for that matter, is not good or bad. Okay? It's actually inherently good. It's just us people who makes it good or bad based on the actions that we take out of all of these. Okay? So again, remember, stock knowledge na to dapat when I see you next, all of the four stages of the data lifecycle, the five roles, definition of analytics, and these two important data ethics principles. So to end, data analytics is still evolving, but most of what you've learned actually inspired us still holds true. And I think um, we kind of designed it that way so that it'll stand the test of time. There's going to be, a bit more of things that we'd like to add because of the some changes and improvements in technology, but it's coming also. And I'd like to mention again, as I was actually grateful to be part of FEU's review process of your specialization in data science. There are FEU students here, right? Are there anyone taking the data specialization, the specialization in data science? Is there anyone planning to take the specialization in data science? Because I'm going to tell you, I'm actually very, very uh, what you call this? I'm very grateful that FEU, when we looked at the curriculum for data science, it's very, very robust. It's very up to date. It's not just focused on the technology, the skills. When we were reviewing it, I was actually prepared with several questions, asking them, do you have design thinking? Do you have cybersecurity? Do you have data privacy? Most importantly, do you have subjects on ethics? Okay, all of that, FEU, check, 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 check. So you should be very proud with FEU that FEU has this very, very strong data science specialization course. And who knows, I might see you in campus one of these days kung in-invite ako ng FEU. All right, thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you very much, sir. Sige. Okay. So I think our Sparta scholars have also remembered the data. Anong next po? Information, insights, and imperatives. Nakalimutan na din po nila. Okay. Hindi pa po ba kayo data overload at this point in time? Kaya pa? May ano pa yung brain? Sige. Um, for our last speaker, you can if you have questions to our panel of discussants today, you can write it down. We'll have our Q&A after our fourth discussant. Okay? So, alam ko marami kayong questions, marami kayong gustong itanong, especially on the research for the public sector, for the private sector and the academic sector. So, lista nyo lang yan. We will be passing the mic later for your questions. Okay. So, of course, last but not the least, our speaker was appointed as an executive member of the National Innovation Council last June 30, 2023, just recently, representing the business sector. He first joined the public service in 2006 as commissioner of the then Commission on Information and Communications Technology and retired as the Undersecretary of the Department of Information and Communications Technology, DICT, in July 2019. Before joining the government in 2006, he had a long, successful career with multinational companies such as Fujitsu, Siemens, Nixdorf, Comparex, Germany, and Unisys, Australia, in various executive positions. Today, he serves as the Vice President and Trustee of the Analytics and Artificial Intelligence Association of the Philippines, AAP, the trustee and vice president of the University of the Philippines System Information Technology Foundation, the lead convener for the Alliance of Technology Innovators for the Nation, a columnist for Tech for Good, the Manila Bulletin, member of the Internet Society, the Philippine chapter. He also completed the Professional Managers Program at the Ateneo de Manila University and a public sector executive program on innovative government at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy of the National University of Singapore. During the 2012 International ICT Awards, he was given the ICT Individual Contributor Award for his contributions to the growth of the Philippine IT BPO industry. He was also named one of the 10 ICT industry movers and shakers for 2002 to 2012 and a recipient of the board's choice as government champion in 2019, both given by the contact center of the Philippine CCAP. And in 2016, he was given the Sapphire Flare for Brilliance Award by the IBPAP for his work in the development of homegrown BPO companies in the countryside. Wow. Okay, without further ado, let's all welcome Mr. Bonchito Ibrahim.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Haba nun ah. Dapat palitan ko na yun. Anyway, we've heard from three speakers before me from Ateneo. But, every time I'm asked, saan ka, yung undergrad mo, saan mo ginawa? I always say, well, I did it in Paris, Paris Stern University. So, I'm back home. Who are from FU here? Oh, biglang dumami kaya nang tinatanong kayo kung sino yung mga kukuha ng data science, walang nagtataas ng kamay. But anyway, this space, kung hindi pa alam ni Miss Rosana, this is actually ito yung space dito ng pinakamaraming multo dito sa FEU. Alam niyo kung bakit? This used to be the space of the FEU hospital. When I was actually studying here, ito yung FEU hospital dati. So, alam niyo na pag dating hospital yan, anong marami doon. Okay? And really a proud Tamaraw here. And I spent 4 years here, 80% inside the campus and 20% doing demonstrations outside because that was actually the time of before the right after the first quarter storm. Okay, and I enjoyed my uses, especially the chapel. Okay. And I think one of the best school chapels here, one of the best was is school grounds actually in among all the schools in Metro Manila is actually FEU. The buildings are Art Deco. Except that medyo nainis ako nung ginawa nila tong FEU Tech dahil hindi na Art Deco. Okay. And but during my time here, we were actually may kabagyan, Attorney Caronan here. Okay. He's from Tuguegarao. My mom is from Gataran. Okay. Which is actually just a short drive away. I saw you yesterday during the launch of the National Innovation Agenda. So one of the best, I was saying, one of the best graduate kasi ako dito eh. So I'm back. Yung low mo dito rin, yung undergrad. Yung undergraduate, pareho tayo undergrad. Actually, wala naman ako tinapos eh. Puro ano ako eh, puro. And of course, I'd like to make special mention of my colleague here, Doc JP. Okay. Alam niyo, binabayaran kami ng gobyerno ni kaming dalawa ni Doc JP 2,000 o 2,500 every meeting. Hindi ko alam kung binabayaran tayo eh. As actually members of the technical committee on IT education of the Commission on Higher Education. So uh, So it's nice to be back here. Kinukwento ko sa kanila, attorney. Sabi ko, ito yung lugar dito sa FEO na pinakamaraming multo. Because this used to be the hospital, di ba? Okay. Anyway, so my topic today is transforming governance, the power of data analytics in the Philippine government. I've been off and on in public sector service, so I'd like to actually, tell you about the fact that government today is actually the largest collector of data. Okay, and it's also the largest keeper of data in the country. The question is now is government using it properly? Is government actually taking generating a lot of information as well as very very important insights from the data that we have. Everything about us government has it. Okay, as to whether it's actually taking good care of it so that it does not actually was this uh, uh, flow to the hands of unscrupulous was this people. Okay, alam naman natin that just recently uh, the PhilHealth was actually victimized by was this the Medusa ransomware. At pag sinabing ransomware, oh my goodness, that's actually the the biggest headache of them all because either you pay or they're actually going to release was is what they have accessed illegally. Okay. Um, uh, some key points. I'm not actually going to, talk long about, alam naman natin eh, kung paano ginagamit ng gobyerno ng data and how it is actually. And I think at the end of the day, it's actually going to depend on government institutions like the Development Academy of the Philippines on how to actually capacitate government to really make meaningful use of the data that is able to collect. Okay, so data analytics is a process of collecting, cleaning, analyzing, and communicating data to extract meaningful insights. And the value chain or the life cycle has been actually was is articulated very very well by my colleague from EEP, Sherwin. Data analytics can also help the public sector improve efficiency, effectiveness, equity, transparency, and accountability of its policies and services. Sana. Okay, but there are actually government agencies who are really able to do this and achieve meaningful insights from the data that they have. Data analytics can be applied to various stages of policy making, such as anticipation and planning, delivery and evaluation, and monitoring of projects. Okay, it is only now, however, that government is actually slowly capacitating itself to really make use of the data that they have. So the government data value cycle, first of all, generation, and then of course governance, data use, and the impact. Maswerte ako dahil kinuwento na lahat ni Sherwin ito kanina, no? So I don't have to actually repeat this. But in terms of generating value of the data, out of data, these are the different processes that are actually that are usually done by the public sector in terms of the use of data. Of course, key benefits, it improves decision making, and ito yung pinaka-importante dito ng aspect ng ng gamit ng data. It has to result to better decision making. Okay, at nakita naman natin to. I'll probably walk you through some of the use cases that we're seeing in some of the government agencies. Increase efficiency, cost reduction. When we say increase efficiency, we're also seeing a transformation in government where they do not just focus on digital transformation, but it is actually about today creating a better customer experience for everyone who is actually doing business with the government or transacting with the government. It's all about now, you know, customer experience. And it is for that reason that I'm so glad to see a lot of government agencies with this starting with design thinking as a framework for any initiative or intervention or program that they plan to undertake. Cost reduction, improved transparency and accountability. Nako, very, very important yun. But as to whether they're actually going to do that or not, the data that is going to make them more efficient and more transparent and more accountable is there. The question now is gagamitin ba nila yun? And improve citizen experience. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. Use cases in the government. Kasi kung meron ko explain ko dito mukhang. So use cases in government. Eto kanina, I think Doc Patricia touched on this a bit, in the use of assistive data, empirical data in the DOH was this effort to manage was this the impact of COVID-19 in the country. The Department of Education, ito marami na talaga to. And we're seeing actually DepEd really use was this data for to help them better decide better and make them make the programs more impactful to to our school children. The Department of Social Welfare and Development, eto, ang laking gamit talaga ni dito. Ang question kasi is, paano mo malalaman kung sino-sino dapat yung mga beneficiaries ng 4-piece program? Okay, ito yung mga ayuda. And they've actually built a significant was this team of data analysts there for them to be able to actually was this provide insights and empirical data for decision making. Department of Finance, yes, ginagamit na rin niya ngayon. It's not just Department of Finance, even was this, NEDA is actually using this. The economic was this agencies are actually one of the big was this users of data analytics in the country. And of course, the Department of Transportation, they've created a team of was this of data analysts, scientists. They call them data scientists and data analysts. Okay, to help them make meaningful use of the data that they are able to generate, including uh, 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 intended for was this for traffic management and transportation management in the country. So the challenges are the following: data quality. Like I said, the government is actually the biggest collector of data in the country. Okay, and ang problema doon is are the data sets openly available to anyone who would like to do R&D research? Okay, and again, the question on the quality of the data that's actually being made available. Uh, Medyo, I think that's where we actually need to help government make better use of the data that they have. Lack of expertise. Uh, Kanina tinatanong ni Sherwin, sino-sino yung mga gustong gumawa yung those who are planning to take on the specialization on data analytics. Walang nagtataas ng kamay, but we need hundreds of thousands of data analysts today in the country. Okay, and Doc JP knows that because he used to be involved with one of the training companies. We need more data analysts in the country. We need more data engineers in the country. We need more data scientists in the country. Hindi na lahat naman ng role nito kailangan ng math. Kung natatakot kayo ng math katulad ko, okay, pwede naman kayo maging data engineer. Privacy and security, as long as I see people or offices asking me to actually fill up a visitor's log at the lobby before you enter the building, okay, questionable sa akin talaga yung so how are you making sure? Saan pa ginagamit yan? Bakit nyo, bakit kanina ko pa nakikita yung papel na punong-puno ng mga telephone numbers yan at saka mga pangalan, hindi nyo pa tinatanggal yan. Available for everyone to actually take screenshots. So this is also a big, big challenge as far as the use of the proper use of collection rather of data in government. Of course, infrastructure. I'm so glad that the infrastructure that we have in the Philippines is improving. But I think it's not enough to really make the Philippines a mobile first society. Okay. How can we be a mobile first society when the law that actually governs our wireless communication is actually, hulaan nyo anong year ginawa yung batas na yun? 1931, when we were under the Americans, when we were Americans, okay? 1931, hanggang ngayon hindi pinapalitan yung law na yun. The Radio Communications Law of the Philippines, 1931. And that was actually designed for what? For telegrams at saka radio broadcasting. Wala pang gumagamit ng TV noong panahon na yun dito sa Pilipinas eh. Ah, ano yung telegram? Tanungin niyo si Doc JP. Inabutan niya yung RCPI sa PTNT. Ah, ah, Unless you're using yung app na Telegram dyan, okay? At hindi kayo gumagamit ng WhatsApp. But anyway, so how do we actually overcome the challenges? A lot of things. At the end of the day, it's actually just, right now, government needs our help. Either in, you know, in producing more analytics professionals who can actually or willing to work with government. We're also expecting institutions like DAP to help us produce these professionals, and we're also expecting DAP to capacitate the different government agencies on how to better use and be able to extract meaningful information and insights from the data that they are actually collecting. I think so. My key takeaways for this presentation is data in the public sector is very, very important for them to be able to actually arrive at better decisions. Policy development, make them more efficient, make them more transparent and more accountable, and be able to respond to emerging trends in technology, as well as, societal enablers that may actually come our way in the future. And finally, identifying what the challenges and opportunities that are actually available for us. Now, as part of the National Innovation Council, we also need more data professionals to create innovation that's actually made in the Philippines. So malapit na nilang ipasa yung Tatak Pinoy, Angat Pinoy was this bill ni Senator Angara. So that's actually going to provide some impetus for us to create more innovation. And it's not just actually innovation coming from UP, Ateneo. It has to be every was this institution in the country. So with that, I'd like to leave you with a quotation from a guy called named Stuart Brand. He's actually a writer. Once a new technology rolls over you, it's either you're not part of the steamroller or you're actually part of the road. So, anong gusto nyo? Maging part kayo ng steamroller o part kayo ng kalsadang dinadaanan ng steamroller? So, thank you so much for having me here this morning.
Sir, may I invite you to our center stage for our Q&A. Q&A portion. But before that, thank you very much for that very insightful. Yes, I believe that the government sector actually has a lot of data. As we in Project Sparta also knows that we're working a lot of data, and we're hoping that we've at least made a small dent in the need for the expertise in our data scientists, graduates, and data engineers and data analysts. Okay, so questions to our esteemed panel of discussants here. Anyone? I see hands at the back. I invite our Sparta team to hand the Mag-volunturo po ba tayo? Hindi po. Oh, over there. There's a person there at the back. Sige. Please stand up and here and introduce yourself and direct your question. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask a question. Um, so I would like to introduce myself briefly. So I'm JC, and I'm a practicing civil engineer in the construction industry. And I have a question for Sir John Paul Vergara, our first speaker. So I'm really curious about dun sa mga applications, no? So so what really makes me think about this yung sa geospatial analytics and sa reinforcement learning din. But I do have like a question in mind that really sparks me curious about yung progress and when it comes to sa geospatial applications. So one particular thing is about disaster risk and coordination. So I'm really curious to know if there's something that you're also being able to collaborate with some decision makings and some experts about sa like things like yung sa earthquakes, predicting yung mga damages and especially yung parang laging nagiging ano ko yung sa the big one. Paano i-assess, paano na-apply yung application sa analytics for that, especially on arriving with insight on making decisions, lalo na to prevent yung damages and yung loss of lives, di ba? Yun. Yun lang na naman yung raise kong question. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for that question. I'll begin by answering it with like there's data available, so I'm pretty sure sa Fieldvox, sa Pag-asa, and then if you remember, like there was this Project NOAA, there's lots of data available with respect to what kind of informations are there, and there's so many patterns you can come off of that. Now, with going straight to your question of like, I suppose that's a question more on sustainability and also disaster risk management. There's a lot of interest there, and I'm aware people are working on that too. So, Ateneo is also connected to Manila Observatory, for example, and we've been concerned with understanding risk, hazard, vulnerability, and things like that. And I know there's a lot of potential to understand it. Flood prone areas that are near waterways and so on, we could carry things out there for sure. So number one, maybe there's availability of data, there's a lot of interest, but I also know there's like it's very hard to move it forward because I guess getting to a point where the stakeholders can come together and actually move it towards something that we can work with, connected to what Sherwin mentioned, kasi kailangan mag-pull from the top din to make sure that we can get something going. That again, there's data, there's interest, but we need a more concerted effort. And there's ano, parang I'm involved in projects uh, as parang straightforward. Even predicting weather, di ba? Or predicting where it will flood. Kaya nating gawin yung tingin ko if we just came together and figure out what would happen. Ano yung unang mababaha pag dumaan sa Metro Manila? We have a lot of intuition di ba? We know where things happen, pero minsan nabibigla rin tayo, di ba? There was a flash flood thing 2 or 3 days ago, di ba? Biglaan, di ba? Parang all over like EDSA, Quezon Boulevard, and so on. But it would be nice to know whether we can predict, for example, where what will happen given particular stimuli, and how we could move forward with like insights like that. Yep.
Thank you very much. Does it answer your question? Thank you very much, Doctor. Anything else? Any more question from this side of the room? Okay. Gutom na po ba kayo?
Sorry, can I just address? Sir, you mentioned that you're from the construction industry, tama ba? Are you a member of the Philippine Constructors Association, yung organization? But you're familiar with the Philippine Constructors Association?
Um, Somewhat familiar po kasi hindi ako kasi parang member dun eh. So more likely like working lang talaga sa industry.
All right.
Pero
So
not so far like engaging sa mga organizations within the
so just an FYI, I mean there is I know Project Sparta. One of the partners of Project Sparta is PCCI, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. One of the associations under PCCI is the Philippine Constructors Association. What I'm saying is that there are actually programs right now to teach analytics across not just in tech but also in the other industries, especially those that are under PCCI, like the construction. So AAP actually just signed an MOU with PCCI, including the Constructors Association, so that we can start, teaching the fundamentals of analytics and generative AI to all of these, industries. So I mean, again, like I mentioned, analytics and AI is not really just for tech. So we also want that to be known to industries such as construction.
Okay, thank you, Sir Sherwin. I think we have a question over here.
Yeah. Um, Good morning, everyone. My name is Ace from FEU Tech. One of the core functions of analytics is about applications of the algorithm and assessment of the algorithm. So, when can be a model be deployed? Are there any standard ways or computations in terms of accuracy, precision, recall, or do we have a standard um, rates or percentage before a model to be deployed to a certain information system? Because literature reveals that a system could deploy models which is above 70%. But in our cases, I think it depends upon to the domain. Like for example, in medical and medicine, it could be like 95 to 100%. But in your case, when can be a model be deployed in the system? What accuracy results can be determined? Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I think you kind of answered your question already. It's really very dependent on the domain. So I'll let the others answer because it depends. Like if it's a very sensitive, mission critical life or death thing, you want it to be a little more accurate than 70%. Diba? Pero sometimes things like 70 or 80% would work out na rin.
Yeah, I also agree. You also already answered partially the question. So you try to have a comparison basis with the previous studies. But yeah, it's correct. It's also hard to do that because you have a different data set that you used compared to the previous study. So you find a way to somehow see how comparable it is with the previous studies and just there's no really like a set guidelines or specific one that okay, in health you need to have 99%, in transport it's like this. So it's uh you also need to assess. So that's why in my presentation a while ago, if it's health, we really cannot say that it shouldn't replace no medical doctors. It should aid, like help out uh, with pre-assessment, and it's still being um, headed by a medical doctor. So there's also one for transport. One company came to me to ask about maintenance of the train, for example, using computer vision. But who's a stakeholder? So are you confident enough that, and what's the risk if you will just allow the computer to do that? You still have a human person who will look over the system and not really completely rely on it. So we're still in that stage. There's no particular percentage. So you need to assess and also consult the experts if how reliable it is, and do some simulations. Yeah.
So yeah, it depends. So again, the answer is, but I think the I think one, you'll have to at the very start, you'll have to agree with your leaders or your stakeholders what is the acceptable start of the accuracy level, and you'll really have to rely on, if especially if you haven't, if this is the first time that you're doing it, you look at related literature so that you can set your baseline. Okay. So once you have your baseline, your stakeholders have agreed to it, the next important step is you monitor now the accuracy of your model. Because as you put it into production, as you get in more data, the level of accuracy could actually increase or decrease. Okay. So it's important to for you to check that, okay, am I still hitting this target? If not, then new data has been introduced to probably skew your model. I mean, the pandemic actually skewed every model out there, because of the this influx of data that no one was really prepared for. So parang during the pandemic, every, statistician kind of reassessed all of their models because it wasn't working anymore. So once you have your algorithm operationalized, you monitor that, see whether it's still meeting the target. If it's hitting the target, uh, that's good. If it's below the target and even above the target, you'll have to check. Baka kailangan ng, for example, i-tweak ulit yung model because of the data that's coming in.
Okay, thank you, Sir Sherwin. Has this answered your question?
Thank you. Just a follow-up question regarding about the data presented kanina, DPWH, DOH. These reports are somehow output already, meaning these are aggregated. For example, if the students here um, wants to ask for data to a certain company or organizations, given to the fact that there is a Data Privacy Act law, what could be your recommended strategies or steps for us to get data, especially if the students want to get attributes or factors affecting a certain domain? Because in the data.gov.ph, these are reports already, meaning to say aggregated. But if they want to determine factors or attributes, we need to get data straight from the organizations. So do you have any suggested steps or procedures for the students to get the data from different organizations? Thank you.
So, data.gov.page aggregates it now. But if you go to the agencies, there's a wealth of data out there on almost anything. So I would suggest go there because and then after that, you could actually ask permission or to use it, or ask whether there's more data out there. More often than not, they would answer you. And then, but there's an FOI thing also that allows us to ask for data, lalo na if you're using it for research. From my experience, it has always worked. And in fact, minsan, buti tinanong yung earthquake. And I remember in the firm I was part of, we studied the earthquake data. We found an error. We told them. They were so happy na parang may mali kaming na-record kasi na-notice namin parang hindi nag-make sense na may earthquake during this time, and it looks like na-copy-paste ng mali yung data, and they fixed it. So there's you'll be surprised that when you get down to the actual agency websites, they do have the data out there. And then maybe if you look back, so there's a data gov, ano ba tawag na uli nga, parang there used to be an open data initiative Tapos after that may tawag pa sila parang e-gov portal or something like that. So that was parang it was revived also. OpenGov, tapos parang ganyan. So I'm glad that that initiative is still moving. I wish it could move on even further, and that like the academic institutions and AAP can be part of it. Kasi from my experience, kasi we worked on it. We put it together in one platform, and people are always surprised that we're able to get it to work. Kasi I mean, I showed you we had 1,000 layers about everything in the country that we can find, from anything you can think of, from typhoons to number of drugstores and churches, number of like we just put that together and somehow we're able to make use of it. So may konting kailangan trabaho or maraming trabaho pero it can work. Right?
One thing that recently worked in my lab is there's this group of students who would want to work on the road damages. So that's one of the videos shown in the PowerPoint a while ago. So we didn't know anyone from there. We don't have data set from there. So the student really went straight to DPWH and they got someone to talk to there. So, however, there are some challenges also because there's no like everyone's busy. So it's good to have the support of your mentor and have a direct collaboration with a particular agency so they can have a point person to continuously work with you. But it works. You can get.
Let me weigh in on that. A lot of times, the data is there, okay? But if you ask some of the agencies, they don't know that they have the data and what to do with it, okay? Basta nandun lang yun, okay? And that is where I believe we really need to help with this government uh, in order for us to really be able to extract the right data sets that we need for whatever purpose, research and was this laboratory work, okay? And well, there are some examples of government who have who are really prepared, who are very very structured, okay. uh, Pag-asa is actually and PSA, of course, dapat lang, no? PSA are one of them. And I think that's one area that I would like to suggest to the AP to really was this focus on. How can we actually capacitate these government agencies to put, as far as data governance is concerned, put structure into the whole thing so that at the end of the day, kahit pa may FOI tayo, okay, kung hindi naman nila alam kung anong ilalagay nila doon sa sa platform, hindi rin natin magagamit yung data.
One more thing I'd like to add that's very related. You know, it's very kunyari, parang worst case, you get the data, it's not great, it's not perfect. It's actually an interesting study and research just to make it make sense. Diba, kunyari, but you get disappointed, it's disorganized, there's so much missing stuff there. But that's a challenge in itself. That's a very important data science problem. Right? So parang missing data is all over the place. What to do with missing data, how to fill it out, or detecting anomalies is another very interesting data science problem. It's a research project in itself. So kahit medyo palpak yung data, there's still ways to go, and there's so much richness in the way so we can work them out accordingly. So parang what I would look forward to is we like if actually the different sectors come together and figure it out. Kasi my dream is a kind of parang public portal where all budding data scientists can go to, that you can do research or you can just play around and then figure out what you can do with much data out there para magamit naman yung potential ng talent ng Pilipino.
As Doc JP just mentioned, grabbing opportunities look for us to actually, play around with the data. And at the end of the day, we're also helping the government agency, you know what to do about the data that they're collecting.
Okay, may ano po si
Yes, I agree dun sa observation. No? In fact, we have been suggesting to the appropriate authorities na uh, the technology is always there. I think ang unahin natin is how do we govern this data? What is the data governance framework for the data itself? As simple as having a national data dictionary, wala tayo. Katulad sinabi ni Sir kanina, how do you encode the name? You start with the first name or you start with the last name? There is no national policy in that regard. And that's the reason why kahit na nandiyan yung data, mauubos yung oras ng mga data engineers mo, kakaayos ng datos before we even begin to analyze the data. So, yun po yung sinasuggest namin na may tendency kasi ang government to proceed with the technologies and everything. Pero yung policy sa data itself, wala. So, sabi namin, baka dapat mauna talaga yan before anything else. So, maybe this is mabuti na merong forum na ganito at lumalabas from the private sector na yun talaga yung need natin. Kasi kinakailangan talaga natin i-push yung mga agenda na ganito eh. Na we focus on the data governance, ano ba yung dapat na nandyan. Kami sa DAP, we tried to move forward doon sa bagay na yon. So we tried to adopt the ISO framework for data governance. Meron kasing apat na interrelated ISO frameworks on data governance and data security. So binili na namin yung ISO standards na yon. We are trying to craft on our own kung ano dapat magiging itsura nun. But we would need the inputs from the private sector and the academe on how best to structure that framework. So while waiting for the government to act, kami po sa DAP, we're trying to do it already. Na-download na po namin yung mga standards na yon, but we need to frame it in the way that it is applied sa practice. Kasi mahirap yung puro theoretical na standard na framework. So maybe siguro at the next one forum to be allotted specifically for data governance framework as far as government is concerned. So thank you, sir, for that prompt. We will do that, sir.
Thank you very much, President Kironen. Okay, I think we have one more question over there.
Hello, everyone. So, um, I taught here in FA way back for 4 years under Humanities and Social Sciences and a graduate student at the Ateneo School of Social Sciences. So, just to give a context on my in a Washington Post article, a Filipino journalist, Miss Cabato, hello, digital sweatshops in the Philippines within the artificial. This
I'm so sorry for the ano po, technical difficulty. Sige po, can you please repeat your question? Thank you po.
Uh, just to give a context on my question, a Washington Post article, a Filipino journalist, Ms. Regine Cabato, reports on the digital sweatshops in the Philippines within the artificial intelligence industry. She discusses a pervasive labor exploitation of digital workers in developing countries, especially in the Philippines, in the fields of digital innovation and microtasking jobs. So the situation has led to what we called as the race to the bottom in terms of our wages due to the intense competition in our informal economy. So some commentaries for Dr. Dominic Ligot and Jonathan Ong highlight the challenge in regulating these platforms and the need for protective mechanisms. So the question now arises, how do the academia, government, and potentially the private sector address and any efforts can be made on these social and economic issues, especially as we emphasize the meaningful use of data in decision making and better policy making for institutions involved in designing these technologies? How can they promote social good and fulfill their social responsibilities?
I'll start. I was actually one of the respondents interviewed by the reporters, the WAPO. Well, we call them WAPO. Washington was his post, okay? And the term digital sweatshops actually came from AAP. My colleague Doc Ligot, who is not a doctor, by the way. Tawag lang namin Doc Ligot kasi mukha siyang ano PhD graduate. Uh, anyway, uh, I think we need to understand the context. Okay, the writers wrote the article, although maraming controversies dun sa lumabas dun sa article na yun eh. Wrote the article based on their understanding of what is actually the right uh, hourly rates for workers to be getting. Okay, so in the US it's usually what, 10 dollars an hour, probably even as low as 5 or even 3. Okay, and most of our data annotators in the Philippines are actually being paid $1 an hour, I think, on the average. Okay, I have some what's this for the understanding of everyone. In the age of AI, there's now an intense need for training data. Okay, so it is actually in preparing the training data. The was this the AI companies would actually make use of data annotators from almost every country, including the Philippines. It actually started in Africa. Okay, so dati-dati mga $3 per hour yan because of marami nang gumagawa ngayon. Naging $1 was is per hour. And for Americans who wrote the article, $1 per hour, sobra naman, kayang baba naman yan. Not realizing that if you work as a construction worker, okay, 10 cents per hour yung lumalabas dito sa Pilipinas at mas grabe yung ginagawa mo. And they actually focused on one area, Cagayan de Oro City. And there are other areas in the Philippines where data annotators ang dami. And they're actually earning very, very well. And most of these have actually even formed themselves into Filipino companies doing data annotation and what else? Yung sa image, ano tawag doon? Uh, yeah, there's something like that. Okay, so but they just focus on what is in Cagayan de Oro, where most of the workers of that company medyo nade-delayed yung yung sweldo. So in one of my what's his columns in the Manila Bulletin, I actually have a column in Manila Bulletin every Tuesday. I refuted a lot of the things that were actually said in the Washington Post. That was his survey. I started by saying that hindi naman yan talaga yung aspiration namin for our Filipino workers. We're aspiring for them to actually be able to also earn the same kind of salary that Americans or even Europeans would actually be earning. But in the meantime, anong trabaho ang meron yung mga taga Surigao del Norte na college graduates, wala namang mga kumpanya doon. So most of them actually are working for as service crew of Jollibee. Nagtatrabaho dun sa as merchandiser sa SM. Okay, these are decent jobs. These are decent jobs. So itong mga iba doon, nakakita ng ibang opportunity magtrabaho sa data annotators. Okay, I don't know if anyone here doing data annotation. Okay, I've seen how it is done. It is not really that difficult. Okay, but for old people like me, masakit sa mata. Okay, sasakit ang ulo ko doon. But for young people, definitely it's something. So Filipino data annotators, I think on the average per day, 8 hours. Okay, they're earning about 10 to $25 per day. Okay, and if you're actually based in Surigao del Sur, Surigao del Norte, that's more than enough for you to actually provide food for the family in a given day. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone from the private sector? Yes.
So basically there's a lot of when we saw that article, sinabi na, Mon, sa'yo galing lahat ng data, kasalanan mo yung article. Joke. So there's actually a lot of, I mean, you need to understand the context, but it doesn't actually get I mean, stray away from the fact that we need to protect also these workers. I mean, lumalaki yan. It's a very growing industry. When that article came in, Yusek Vita from DTI actually flagged us kaagad eh. So what are we going to do about this? Even the IT Business Process Association of the Philippines, we're very concerned about that. So definitely there's something to look into that for the welfare of our workers. The other thing also is that we are very careful then to check on what these data annotating companies are doing. Kasi when you annotate data, it's like you're assigning a truth to that piece of data, 'di ba? I mean AI naman again, they're not going to tell you whether something is truthful or not. Eh. It depends on how the people who train the data and those models are being used by AI. That's the truth, quote unquote. That's the truth that AI will know. So we also have to check. Okay, are you really annotating the truth from the data that you have or from the image that you are getting. So many facets there. ASEAN just actually released the AI governance ethics framework. DTI, DICT are now looking into that, but I think it's something also that we can apply for everyone who's going to work with data, work with AI.
Just to add, because if you zoom out a little bit, so I'm happy that you asked that question. Because if you start thinking about it with the developments of AI now, there will be a different economy, a different ecosystem coming from what will happen. You probably are like read up stuff on what will happen. Like there will be so many jobs replaced or evolved or changed. There will be a different thing, and then it doesn't make sense to have like everyone can't be data scientists, even if people say that's what we need, diba? Parang if that's all we need, parang if developments in Gen AI will change every industry, then anong gagawin natin, diba? Parang so what not everyone will be a data scientist. There will be some annotators to help reinforcement learning with all these things, but maybe that's something we'd like to start attending to, because it's a very disciplinary kind of endeavor. We need to get the social scientists. You need to worry about like it's like human sciences and the thing. What will happen to humanity in general when AI progresses in the speed that it's taking now? I mean, like, di ba, nung lumabas lang yung that thing about GMA and the AI sportcasters. Just imagine all the comments there coming from all over the place, and all the tampo of the industry of the communications industry, the journalism, etc. And on the one hand, on the other hand, sabi niya, ay ganyan ang buhay. That's where we're headed. Pero we ought to start thinking about consequences in society, consequences for humanity, and for our country in particular. Baka nga may konting swerte ang Pilipinas kasi we'll probably wait for what's gonna happen in the first world. We'll observe. Okay, naman, di ko na, may Hollywood strike tayo, di ba? That's happening. That's affecting the creative industry already. Maybe we'll learn a thing or two on how they'll resolve that, or maybe we'll find out, mas maganda kung ganito gawin natin. So we have to be careful on what happens to Filipinos and what happens to our economy and what happens to the players at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you very much for. I think we have time for one last question. Don't worry, during lunchtime, I think we can also approach our panel discussions later. But yes, sige po.
Hello po, magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. I am Ronald, currently an electrical engineering graduate student. So here's my question, quick question lang po. What are your thoughts po on training a model using data that were generated synthetically by another model? So how does this affect the quality of the training data set po? Thank you.
Uh, Hello. Yeah. Uh, During the early stages of my lab, the laboratory, of course we don't have that much video recordings yet during that time. So there were some data sets that are synthetic data sets. Um, Now, we try to use that at the start, but like what I said a while ago, we want to go out of the laboratory, out of the simulation, and see how it really works in the real world. So when you already use synthetic data and use it in the real world, what accuracy goes down right away. So you try to shift now to using the real world data, and like I presented, you use the localized data for a specific solution. So it might not, it will be good to for exercises, like on learning how to run it, how to set up your platform for do the modeling and all. But if you really want to have it be useful, your model, in real implementation, then that wouldn't work anymore. So you need to use a real data, or live or actual data already, or even already have a real-time feed of data. No, so you need to adapt to the changes in the real-time setting. Yeah. I hope that that helps and answers.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ab. Okay, I think we've learned a lot. We've gained a lot, especially from the different sectors on our power of data. It actually made me more think more of the need of what we the power and the need. Kasi there's that power, and that having with great power comes great responsibility. Tama po ba? Okay. So I'd like to I'd like to everyone to stand for our thank you very much. Can we give our panel discussants a round? Good discussion this morning. And I'll give you over to our MCs for presentation of the tokens to our panel discussants.
And that ends our panel discussion for this conference. May we invite Attorney Caronan and Dr. Cajes to present our tokens of appreciation to our panel of speakers. Now may we invite our panel discussants to face the stage for a quick photo opportunity with our participant.
So everyone that is seated down, kindly stand up and compress para makita po tayo sa middle and face the com- kindly face the center stage po and stand up po. And kindly compress. Face the center stage po. Sa center stage po manggagaling yung photo. Thank you. Ay, ay. Once again, thank you for our panel discussants. We will now be having our lunch break. Our lunch break is until 1:30 p.m. Food will be distributed by the Sparta project team, so please remain in your seats. Kindly observe cleanliness and ensure that you dispose of your trash properly. Ensure to be careful with your food and avoid dripping on the carpeted floor. During the break, feel free to network with other attendees and socialize with others, and you may even ask our panel discussants for a selfie. You may PH
PH
and
and
hashtag
hashtag
second
second
PH
PH
conference
conference
on
on
data
data
analytics.
analytics.
Once
Once
again, we
again,
will
we
be
will be
selecting one
selecting one
participant
participant
to
to
receive a
receive a
special
special
gift
gift
from
from
us.
us.
The
The
recipient will
recipient
be
will be
announced
announced
before the
before the
event
event
concludes.
concludes.
After
After
lunch,
lunch,
we will
we will
begin our
begin our
parallel
parallel
sessions.
sessions.
You may
You may
refer to
refer
your
to your
email for
email
your
for your
breakout
breakout
room
room
assignments.
assignments.
Here are
Here
the
are the
guidelines for
guidelines
the
for the
breakout
breakout
rooms.
rooms.
First,
First,
each
each
presenter will
presenter
be
will be
given
given
10
10
minutes to
minutes to
present their
present their
research.
research.
Second,
Second,
a
a
5-minute
5-minute
Q&A
Q&A
portion will
portion
be
will be
allocated for
allocated
the
for the
audience.
audience.
Lastly,
Lastly,
kindly
kindly
maintain
maintain
respective
respective
conduct,
conduct,
listen
listen
actively to
actively
our
to our
presenters,
presenters,
and
and
avoid
avoid
disruptive
disruptive
behavior.
behavior.
15 minutes before lunchtime ends, you may already enter your assigned breakout rooms. But please remember that you cannot bring food or drinks inside the rooms. Happy lunch, everyone.